Hi, this recording is for those of our Reboot participants who could not join in on our group coaching call today, or to revisit as a resource for those who did. Starting at the beginning, what is the Whole30? It's an elimination diet followed by a reintroduction period. So an elimination diet is where you're taking out groups of foods commonly known to cause issues for some people, and you are sticking to a simple whole foods based diet. That's what this elimination diet is anyways. They can look very different. There's a broad spectrum for elimination diets, but this one is, let's take out specific food groups and focus on eating whole foods. It's designed for food freedom. So what that means is, what does it feel like when we know the true impact of what we eat on our skin, our energy, our mental clarity, our memory, our sleep, just how we feel in our bodies. In terms of, what that looks like, I've got these pictures up on the presentation of a still lake and of the ocean. And I have them there because when you throw a pebble into a still lake, you can really see the ripple effect, right? You can see the waves caused by that pebble. Whereas if you're throwing a pebble into the ocean, the waves are already so turbulent, there's already so much happening in the water, you can't really see the impact of that pebble. The idea in the Whole30 is, let's take 30 days. And if the foods you were eating, dairy and alcohol, sugar, were having an impact on the body, let's let the body recover from that, get into a different place. And then when you introduce dairy, you're really going to see the ripple effect or feel the ripple effect. The Whole30 guidelines are: eat real food, vegetables, fruit, meat, seafood, and eggs, natural fats, nuts, seeds, herbs, spices, seasonings. Eat foods with a simple or recognizable ingredient list, or recognizable list of ingredients, or no ingredients at all because they're just whole and unprocessed. Don't eat any added sugar, real or artificial, alcohol in any form, grains, most beans, peanuts, soy, dairy, carrageenans, sulfites, MSG, baked goods, junk foods, or treats with approved ingredients. This means making an almond flour egg white crepe is off plan. This means that popcorn is off plan. When we're talking about sugar, we mean any added sugar. So cane sugar, honey, maple syrup, agave, stevia, fake sugar or artificial sugars, none of it. For alcohol, any form, even to cook with, we're not going to use it. For grains, we mean oats, corn, rice, barley, millet, any of those grains. And also, we are not going to be eating quinoa, amaranth, or these, seed cereal-like grains that we sometimes substitute in for rice. We're avoiding those as well. We're avoiding peanuts, which are a legume, but also a particularly allergenic legume for many folks. We're avoiding soy, dairy, carrageenan, sulfites, and MSG are additives that can be inflammatory. Baked goods, while we can make baked goods out of whole foods, I'm very familiar with the paleo baking world, we're avoiding that because we're not only taking a break from foods ingredients that can be problematic, but also the food habits that sometimes can get kind of sticky. It can be really easy to get into the habit of making paleo pancakes every morning and putting maple syrup on them. And even if you're, doing whole ingredients and maple syrup, that might be better than high fructose corn syrup and, Eggo waffles. It's still going to be more sugar, and it's still going to be a food habit that it might be good to take a break from. Lastly, fine print at the bottom there, don't hop on the scale for 30 days. The focus of the Whole30 is really to step into a different mindset with regard to food and really be focusing on how you feel in your body. In the beginning, that might not be so great. By about week 2, it might be increasingly great, but you want to really be paying attention to, how do you sleep? What is your energy like throughout the whole day? What is your mood like? Are you less grumpy, more stressed, less stressed? If we're just paying attention to our weight, we tend to forget to pay attention to everything else. And so for this 30 days, don't hop on the scale, not once. There's some fine print exceptions that I want to go over. So while we don't do dairy on the Whole30, you can have ghee or clarified butter. Milk proteins get removed for cooking. And the milk protein is what people tend to have issues with. Fruit juice is allowed as long as there's no added sugar. Specific legumes, so green beans and sugar snaps, snow peas, green peas, yellow peas, split peas. We're still not doing mung beans, lentils, black beans, etc. These are the only legumes we're eating on this plan. Unless you're doing an adapted Whole30, where you're doing not doing the Whole30 diet, but you're doing kind of a vegetarian variation, where you're going to keep some legumes for plant protein because you won't be doing animal protein. That's different. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions you have about crafting that plan for yourself. We're allowing vinegar and botanical extracts. So by botanical extracts, we mean vanilla extract, extracts of that nature, as long as they don't have high fructose corn syrup added. You've got to read your labels there, because when you go to Ingles, there's the option to buy organic or even non-organic 100% real vanilla extract, where it's just the orchid pod that's been soaked in alcohol, or you can buy a vanilla flavoring in high fructose corn syrup and alcohol. So pay attention to that. Vinegar is allowed as long as it is not malt based, because malt, of course, has gluten. Coconut aminos are allowed, even though when you read the label, it will say coconut nectar. Coconut nectar is what coconut aminos are made out of. It is not like maple syrup. It is okay to eat. Salt is allowed, of course. Might be surprised to see that on this list, but I didn't know this until reading through the Whole30 buy rules. Table salt, iodized table salt, has some form of sugar in it usually as a stabilizer. Usually it's dextrose. So even though that dextrose might be in the iodized salt, we're still allowing salt because the founders had to draw the line somewhere where they, had to just make some things okay without being excessive. Okay, so this talk is really what I wanted to get to, was preparation and really supporting you and having kind of a mental to-do list that sets you up for feeling prepared, confident, and successful next Monday. First, I would invite you to get out a piece of paper and a pen and write down some questions. Why are you doing this reboot? What do you hope to get out of it? What impact will doing the Whole30 have on your physical health and well-being? How does that ripple outwards in your life? What effect can it have on your relationships, your work, your kids, your sense of self? Either journal or write about this, meditate on it, talk about it with somebody you love and trust, but really kind of flesh out, why are you doing this? Because that's an important emotional anchor to your decision to take on a Whole30. And knowing why this is emotionally relevant to you can sometimes be the thing that helps you to stick to the plan and really get out of it what you want. I would recommend that you print out the do's and don'ts and have them on reference when you're grocery shopping, whether that's Instacart or whether it's at a grocery store. But don't buy food with a very nebulous sense of what you can or can't eat, because it can just be kind of stressful, confusing, and lead to, accidentally getting a salad dressing that has sugar in it and then being very frustrated. Go ahead and get out your calendar and kind of keep in mind your work calendar, your family calendar, and your Whole30 calendar, and integrate them so that you know when your day 1 of the Whole30 is, you know when your day 30 is, you know when your reintroduction starts, and you know when it ends. And you can plan for events that are going to be happening during those time periods. If-then statements. Think about barriers or challenges that could come up and write if-then statements. If I am offered free sugar foods, a free donut, then I will say no thank you. If someone asks me why I'm doing a Whole30, then I will reply XYZ, because my doctor recommended it, or because I'm curious about what I will feel like. But kind of start thinking about how you're going to navigate situations that might feel stressful or challenging and still come out sticking to the Whole30 and doing this the way you ideally want to. Have a support system in place beyond me and beyond the Reboot structure. Have at least 1 or 2 people who you trust and feel safe with, who you've talked to about why you're doing this and why it's important to you. And speaking about this and why you want to do it can help you to then follow through successfully. And then lastly on this page, pantry and fridge organization. We always want to avoid any potential for reaching past the chocolate to get to the Whole30 almonds. You know, we don't want to be reaching into the fridge. And if you love cream and coffee, you have to reach past the cream to get to the homemade almond milk for your coffee. If at all possible, reorganize your fridge and have Whole30 compliant foods, be in a drawer. If you have a family that's not doing the Whole30, consolidate your food and put it in one place, and that is your place to get food from in the fridge. Do the same thing in your pantry or in your cupboards. Have your place with your foods that you reach for. And go ahead and stock up on ingredients to have. Make sure that you have options you're excited about. Think about snacks. If you're going to be doing some snacks, think about breakfast, lunch, dinner. Think about easy to prepare items and have a good amount of them on hand. If you have something that you kind of like, then if you're hit with a craving for ice cream and you have the ingredients to make a smoothie, then you can make a smoothie, right? You want to be prepared for these scenarios, and you want to have something that you can work with and that you're going to eat. Prepping ingredients ahead of time can be helpful. So going ahead and having, salad ingredients, having snack ingredients. Our nutritionist, Catherine Wilson, I've heard her recommend having in the fridge, pre-chopped carrots and tomatoes and cucumbers and apples and oranges, and having nuts as well, so that you can just grab a go bag of snacks and that's your snack bag. Have a meal plan for at least 3 to 5 days in advance. And I personally recommend cooking ahead. So whether you cook, 2 to 3 meals at a time and you put one in the freezer, or whether you batch cook and when you open your fridge, it kind of looks a little bit like, a hot bar, but in a fridge at a Whole Foods or restaurant. But think about how you can have, some protein that's prepped, a vegetable thing that's prepped, some breakfast items prepped. I like to do, if I'm going to turn on the oven, I like to really maximize that time. So I might do a tray of roasted vegetables, squash, zucchini, beets, carrots, and also roast some whole sweet potatoes, and also roast a whole chicken, and also a tray of bacon. Really try and get it all in there. And then just go ahead and have chicken in the fridge, some pre-cooked bacon for breakfast, some pre-cooked vegetables, fresh greens. And then it's really easy to put together different meals from those ingredients, and it doesn't take a lot of time. I am sending out meal plan support in our Elation Reboot message from today. Real plans for a paid meal plan, free options where you get a free kind of ingredient list, free recipes already planned out for each week of the Whole30, and then grocery lists that match those lists. So if you need support in the planning side of things, it's out there, and I'm already sending it to you. Revisit your why and write down your intentions for this reboot and the Whole30. Writing down your goals increases the chances that you'll actually follow through. And so take the why that you might have thought about earlier when I asked those questions and translate that into a goal. What are you doing in this Whole30? Are you sticking to it no matter what? Why and how? And write it down to really kind of make it clear for yourself. If you have done a Whole30 previously, write down what helped you to do well, what helped you to succeed. If you've never done a Whole30 before, write down the strengths and resources that will help you to succeed. What personal strengths, character strengths do you have that you can bring to the table? Are you fantastic at organization? Do you love to cook? Do you have a family member or a friend who loves to cook who will Zoom call with you and coach you through? Think about how you can draw on your resources to feel supported through this process. Lastly, food is not just about food. It is about connection, stress, family, celebration, love, belonging, heritage, and more. And so when we're looking at stepping outside of our normal food habits, it can feel strange. Sometimes we can feel like what that bird looks like in the midst of our family. When, I remember the first time my abuela, my Cuban grandmother, offered me a meat dish during a period when I was not eating meat. And I said, no, thank you. And she looked at me and said, why aren't you eating ropa vieja? Ariana, it's your favorite. Well, because I'm taking a break from meat right now. And she just looked at me and looked at me. And I felt like that bird. And so it's just, it can be strange how food, it can be a charged subject. And so have some self-compassion for yourself and some curiosity about, when you have a craving, what's going on for you? Are you stressed? Are you bored? Are you lonely? Are you angry? What's happening? And think ahead to what you could do in that situation. If you have a very strong craving for some kind of food, can you drink a glass of water and go for a walk? If someone in your family has a negative reaction to you doing a Whole30, how would you like to respond? Things like that. But just notice that it can be weird and kind of challenging to change food habits because it can feel threatening to others and because it can feel emotionally challenging to not have what we're used to reaching for. And lastly, this is not an all or nothing process. While the Whole30 is very strict, their language is very strong about you have to stick to it for 30 days. In the Reboot, we want this to be about you making choices for your best health and supporting you in that process. And if you do the Whole30 and you have a couple of slip ups, but you otherwise stick to it, what will the net gain for your health be? Right? As opposed to if you do the Whole30, you get 2 weeks in, something happens and you stop. What will the net gain be for your health? We're invested in supporting you and your best health, not just for this month, but for your life. And so this again connects back to the goal setting and why you're doing this. How does this Whole30 connect to your best health and to how you want to move forward in your life, health-wise? That is it for my presentation component. I will go ahead and just recap some of the questions and answers that I got while we did the group coaching. So questions that I received were, are grits allowed? And the answer is no, because they are corn-based. And how much weight do people tend to lose during a Whole30? And I said, this really, really varies based on body, age, what's going on in your health, what you were eating and living like before the Whole30. Are you exercising? Do you have an active lifestyle? Was your diet already low in sugar and carbs? So anywhere from no weight loss to 5 pounds to 10 pounds to more. It really can vary. I also reiterated the importance of not stepping on the scale and thinking about other metrics besides weight for tracking progress or tracking a sense of change over the course of the Whole30. For instance, quality of sleep, energy, mood, skin, how clothes fit, digestion. Those are some great things to just pay attention to. And you might even write those down and just, once a week, make a little note about how you feel in those regards. And then see at the end, was there a change over those 4 weeks? Another person asked, are white potatoes allowed? And I, responded, in the history of the Whole30, there have been times when white potatoes were not permitted in the guidelines. And they've since changed that. They are currently allowed. However, it really depends on your personal health, whether or not you choose to eat them. So the founder of the Whole30, Melissa Hartwig, recommends, her personal recommendation as a personal trainer, not as a doctor, is that if you are not active, like physically very active, you should probably avoid white potatoes. I would say check in with your provider. Send a message through the Elation portal to your IFMA medical provider and ask, for my health, what are your recommendations for me when I do this Whole30? Would you suggest I stay away from white potatoes? What about sweet potatoes? Dates, the sweeter fruits. In general, if you already have, a healthy blood pressure range and you're living an active lifestyle, then just making sure that you're not, that you're in balance. You're not having white potatoes with every meal, that you're having plenty of greens and a wide diversity of vegetables, and you should be fine. If you have concerns, check in with your provider. I've definitely seen our medical providers recommend that specific patients avoid white potatoes, sweet potatoes, and high glycemic fruits while they do a Whole30. And so if that's the case, then you're trending more towards beets, carrots, a lot, all the different kinds of squash, green plantains, those might be the starchy vegetables you would eat, and you would still want to eat those within reason, not overdoing them. Yeah. So those were the main questions we kind of focused on in our question and answer session. I hope that this was helpful. Please feel free to send me any questions you might have, and have fun planning this weekend.